Blue Dog Films presents Paid to Dream with Charles Dennis. Hello again, it's Charles Dennis and Paid to Dream, and over in the other screen, that guy is Steve Sturla, the Steve Sturla, who came out of San Francisco, went down south, and made an extraordinary career for himself.
Oh, hey, Dave. What are you doing in my pool, Milton?
What's it look like I'm doing, Dave? You've ruined me again.
I ruined you? You went to Vegas again last week, didn't you?
No! Yeah.
Hello, I don't think I've done anyone Saturday morning before, not in an interview anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah. What?
Look at that wall.
I don't know how to take that.
Look at the Sturla wall behind you.
Oh, well, that's, yeah,
Who are those two ladies? Who are the two ladies there?
Where are they?
No, up,
ladies?
one more row up. Yeah, 1 and 2.
Oh, this right here, this is my mother. Very glamorous looking woman, and she's...
Yes, I remember seeing a picture, a color picture somewhere in the last year or two. With
so
gorgeous.
she was...
Was she an actress? Was she in the arts?
She was not, but she was a beauty queen. She won a lot of beauty pageants and stuff, and but she never really. I mean, she should have been in the arts. She's such a character and very, very funny. I get a lot of my sense of humor from her and my father too. But very. She's very theatrical person. Big personality.
Wow. And what did your dad do?
Well, my dad was a newspaper reporter in L.A. and for the L.A. Examiner, and then also in San Francisco as well. In fact, he did news and sports, and for a while he covered the San Francisco Seals baseball team, which is a minor league team before the Giants moved from New York. So the San Francisco Seals, that was part of the Pacific Coast League. So this is going way back. So he
Wow.
was a big baseball fan, and he loved covering the team. And then when the Giants moved out here, they all those minor leagues were wiped away. They used to have like a team in Oakland. They had a team and a couple of teams in L.A. They had one called the Hollywood Stars.
Yeah.
So the Pacific Coast minor league was a real big thing up until probably the first 30, 40 years of the century, or 50 years actually, because then it all dissipated when the Giants and Dodgers moved out west.
Well, so how did you get into the show business in San Francisco?
Well, that's a good question. I started out as a with journalism, and I was a reporter up there for a couple of small towns in the Central Valley, and then I would have I had like a local comedy show in Modesto, at the local Modesto cable station, and it actually. We did a lot of really creative things, and all of the people that were in the arts in Modesto, anyway, quite a lot of them, I was able to talk into coming onto my show, and it was a talk show where we actually were playing characters. So this was before Larry Sanders, So that's kind of like what the theme was. It was these two guys that hosted a talk show, and then they. But it was kind of like a sitcom as well. So it was very ambitious for its time and for its place.
And for Modesto, absolutely.
Oh my God!
You must have 100%. A statue of you in the town square.
Almost, yeah.
It's interesting that the number of parallels in our lives, that we're both actors, that we're both filmmakers, but you're the only other person besides me who has a history of interviews going way back.
You know what? And that's really my favorite thing. It really is. I mean, I love to write. I love acting. I love comedy most of all, but I really enjoy doing interviews, but also I enjoy doing it from a comic perspective. I mean, I always try to make them fun, but at the same time, getting information. You know, I mean, I like doing a lot of uh, interviews because really everybody's got a story to tell, you know, and it's always fun to try to get something interesting out of somebody, no matter how boring they may seem or bland initially, you know.
When I was 17, I went to work for the now defunct Toronto Telegram, and they knew nothing about show business. So they
Yeah.
let me do whatever I want. I would go down to New York. It was a 1 hour flight from Toronto. And my first, I did 3 interviews the first time: Walter Matthau, Peter Falk, and Johnny Carson.
Wow.
All these years later, Steve, Johnny Carson is still the worst interview I ever had.
I bet I can imagine that. Well, what did he do? Was he just kind of abrupt and rude with you, or
Yes,
just kind of?
no, maybe, I guess. He just I could not get him to open. But then
And
in
you know
some,
that's so interesting because you hear so many things about him. You know, you see that he's a good interviewer, but then you hear so many things about him that the people that knew him said he wasn't such a nice guy, and
no,
he
and there was
wasn't that interesting.
the red light came on and he came alive. And other than
Yeah.
that, you know, I don't know. I mean, he played cards. There was a bunch of guys he plays cards with, but I don't. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. There's
And
and
you know, I mean, man, I had my questions, and
yeah, yeah,
and I thought, how am I going to write this? Because we had our own TV guide that came out on the
yeah.
weekend with a paper, and he was on the cover, and it was
Nice.
Charles Dennis has gone to New York. And I thought, how do I do? So I basically, I spent like 6 column inches saying what the next question was, and then the
Yeah.
answer, whoop. So that it became off that this guy is just, you know,
Well,
not cooperative.
at that point, had he already was he already with the Tonight Show?
Oh gosh, yeah, but it's
Oh, but
still
he was.
doing it. It was still doing it in
Yeah,
New York before they moved
yeah.
out here, and very strange, very very strange. Everybody
But
else was
then,
great.
yeah.
I mean, that same trip. I mean, Walter Matthau tried to get me to marry his stepdaughter. He was great. He was just terrific, and didn't, you know, was not the least bit diplomatic about things. But he was great. And Peter
Yeah.
Falk, I'd had a correspondence with, um, and when he was doing a show called Trials of O'Brien. They were shooting it up in Spanish Harlem, and he couldn't have been dearer and nicer. And
Yeah.
you know, we maintained a relationship for right up. Well, unfortunately, I was trying to this book that I'm doing. Who the hell is Charles Dennis? And you know, he was an early one of the people whom I had interviewed. I went back to try, and unfortunately, he had Alzheimer's by then, and it was really sad.
Yeah. I remember Tony Curtis told me a really funny story about Walter Matthau when they were because
Oh,
they
is this
both came
the
up.
Yvonne De Carlo?
The oh, did you see? Did you see that interview?
I've seen it. No, no, but I remember in his he had 2 different
Okay, he
memoirs.
mentioned it in his book, and yeah, yeah, and
And he drove by the old neighborhood and he saw
yeah,
Walter.
yeah, and then the funny thing was because like he was saying, he said is that he kind of leapfrogged ahead of Walter Matthau, you know, and just based on his looks, you
Yeah.
know, and all of a sudden, you know, they're studying at the same place, he said, yeah, once he hit it, he said he told the limo driver go to my old neighborhood, you know, and I want you, you know, drive by my old studio there, you know, and he sees Walter Matthau up front just looking miserable in a raincoat as it was pouring down rain. And then he said, hey, just go up there and roll down the window, you know, and pull up in front of him. And he goes, hey, Walter, I fuck you, Von Carlo. And then he rolled up the window and he told the limo driver, just get out of here. And you know what's kind of ironic about that, looking back at it, is that, but then later on, Walter Matthau became bigger than Tony Curtis. And what was interesting about that, you know, remember Walter Matthau had a big hit with the Bad News Bears, right?
Right.
There was a lesser hit follow up called the Bad News Bears Goes
Goes
to
to
Japan
Japan.
or something, and that was with Tony Curtis.
Well, it's interesting. Remember that there was a Damon Runyon story called Little Miss Marker, which Shirley Temple did in the 30s. Then it was remade in the 40s with Bob Hope. It was called Sorrowful Jones. It was the whole
Yeah.
thing about a bookie and he's left his child as a marker while the father goes off somewhere. And then Tony Curtis did it as 40 Pounds of Trouble, and the villain was Walter Matthau.
Oh, that's funny.
And then years later, Walter did it. He was Sorrowful Jones, and I think Tony Curtis was a villain by that time.
That's funny. Yeah. Tony Curtis is a great guy. I really, he was just a sweetheart. I really enjoyed him. The Walter, I remember one time too. I remember one time I was at a newsstand on Robertson, and I remember, you know, getting. I was looking to bending over to get a magazine, and then somebody walked up right next to me and grabbed a racing form, you know. And I thought, God damn, this guy really smells bad. And I turned around to see it was Walter Matthau. He was dressed in a suit and everything, and he had his Rolls Royce parked out front. He was on his way to Hollywood Park for because we're always at the racetrack. But I know it's a funny, weird thing to say, but he had like the worst damn BO you can possibly imagine.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
he was a compulsive gambler. He would
Oh my
bet
God.
on a fly with sugar cube. It began.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Great character actor.
how did you get into improv?
You know, when I first, well, to me, with improv or with comedy, either you got it or you don't. I mean, I don't think you can teach somebody to be funny, you know, and I don't think you can. But when I first came out here in the late '80s, you know, I took a class at Second City um, with now what's the guy's name? Richard Kind, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
who was a fucking jerk. But anyway, anyway, I took that from him for a couple of months. Um, Not a nice guy, but but I didn't learn anything. You know, I mean, either to me, to improv. I mean, there's basic little rules of improv that you do if you're in an improv group. But the problem with that is if you go see an improv show, it always looks like they're improving, you know, and it just looks a little forced. And I'm not everybody can do it. So if you're acting with somebody, I think you have to identify ahead of time who's good at improv. You know, who can throw a line in, and then with that person, you allow them some freedom. You know, but there are a lot of people that they're no good at it, and you don't want them improv. Now, I'll give you a good example. So. There was I had a sketch comedy group called the Santa Ana Winds that we used to appear at the Comedy Store and at the Improv for quite a bit. And it was directed by Sherry North, who was just an amazing person. But anyway, um,
I played her husband once.
oh, now I don't want to hear it. Hold on.
Oh,
So
well, finish your.
and what Sherry would say is, and so I brought her in to direct it, and she would say, okay, you know, she would identify who can go ahead and improv or throw in a line or something. Because there's a lot of times from each time I did a scene, I would like to try throwing in different things, you know, and sometimes depending on the audience too, because I was always coming up with new stuff and I was always writing new material. But then sometimes other actors would want to try to jump in like that too, and they just weren't good at it, and they're not good with time. I mean, I don't even really care for Curb Your Enthusiasm that much because they're so proud of saying, "Oh, we improv so much of it," you know. Well, to me, you can tell, and
Yeah.
I don't think they have good timing in that. You always feels like they're not ending the scene soon enough. You know, it just seems like it's always most of the scenes like they drag. You know, but I want to hear about you and Sherry North now.
Oh, well, this is in this town. There are so many readings all the time. I just did one of the new play
Yeah,
a couple of weeks ago. but I was invited somewhere. Oh, this has got to be 25 years ago, and they gave me the script. It wasn't, it was like on the spot, and Sherry will be playing your wife, and I was, oh, oh my God, it's Sherry Nolan.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I still remember living it up years ago. Martin and
Oh my
Lewis, and
God,
she
yes.
did that dance.
That was amazing. That's an
Oh my
amazing scene. I love that scene there. Yeah, with the dance scene.
Oh, and I
Yeah.
adored that, and the fact that she's so transformed herself in middle age into this great character actress,
Right.
and that
Exactly.
people, it's like Diana Dors did that in England too. Went from the bombshell into the character actress. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's who I am now. I don't have to
Yeah.
die anymore.
Yeah. Because
Uh,
yeah, they were pushing Sherry North as the next Marilyn Monroe. You remember?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
especially at Fox, because
Yeah.
as they
Right.
did with Jane Mansfield, you don't
Right.
behave yourself. We got this girl, in the wings.
Right, exactly, and they had her do a sequel to the. Well, nobody even remembers this movie, but she did the sequel to the 7 Year Itch called the Lieutenant Wore Skirts, also with Tom Ewell, who I thought was a hack,
Yeah,
but
well, yeah.
but I think Rita Moreno was in it as well. But it's a movie that I think is completely lost as far as if anybody even realizing that that was the sequel to the 7 Year Itch. And you're right, they were holding that over her, and it became a kind of a joke after a while, and she never really took off in that direction as the bombshell, really.
Yeah, the thing about the 7 Year Itch, watching it now, or probably watching it then,
Yes.
Tom Ewell, no,
Ah,
I'm sorry, because Billy Wilder wanted the unknown Walter Matthau.
well,
He,
and that's what I understand. Walter Matthau, it would have been perfect. He would have been so
absolutely.
much better. It would have been a far better movie. Tom Ewell is difficult to watch.
Well, 8 years later, he got Walter Matthau and got him an Oscar for The Fortune
Yeah,
Cookie. So, just,
yeah.
and I want to know about this Santa Ana Wins. How did you come to form it?
It was that's a good question. I'm trying to figure out. It was just something I wanted to do. I wanted to have a sketch comedy group, and I wanted to do because I had done stand up and didn't really enjoy it. And I was good at stand up. I just didn't enjoy it, and I didn't enjoy being around comics because it just for the most
Ugh,
part they're just
ugh.
really, oh my God, it's brutal being around and then
Meanwhile,
hanging out at comedy clubs. I couldn't stand it. So I wanted to have a different avenue for comedy. So then, and I always loved sketch comedy. I always loved like Saturday Night Live and I loved writing sketches. And I always had already been doing that up north. And so I came in. I did, I found I forget who directed the first few. The first few months I had a friend of mine direct who didn't have much of a background in comedy, but at least he was willing to do it at the time. And I just went ahead and found maybe I think maybe 10 good comedy actors, and auditioned them, and then Sherry North got involved because she came and see my show and she loved it, and she would talk about it so much. And then finally one day I said, "Hey, would you be interested in directing this?" And she said, "Oh," she said she would love to, So then uh, uh, that became a very fun thing. It was a very fun time. We did that for 2 or 3 years.
well, listening to you now, I realize it wasn't a fluke when I cast you as Rusty Stutz, in Deadly Draw. I mean, you're just so funny, and you
Thank
you
you.
you picked up that horseopoly game.
Oh,
You
I
kind of
forgot about that.
Well, well, well. I was kind of wondering when you'd be turning up here. Did you know a gelding is a castrated stallion? That's amazing. Hey, wow. Listen, as long as you're here, how about a quick game of horseopoly? Huh? It's a lot of fun. Yeah? No?
Cut the cowboy shit, Rusty. You haven't owned that car lot for years.
I know, but I had a hell of a lot of fun and I made a shitload of money.
you are like the greatest parody of Death of a Salesman. Little Saigon, tell us about Little Saigon.
Oh, well, that was, and funny enough, that was supposed to be, Tony Curtis was supposed to be in that. And because I talked to him about it. And then he got ill because he was pretty ill the last few years of his life, And we were going to have to come out to him because he lived in Henderson, Nevada. But anyway, it's sometime in that maybe late 90s, I had a friend of mine was living in Orange County. He says, "Hey, why don't you come down and meet me for lunch down in Little Saigon?" I never heard of it. So I went down there, and I was just amazed at this community. It's fantastic. And it's because it was made by all these people who came over with nothing. They came over. The people who came over after the fall of Saigon, I mean, they were 100% refugees, and they came over with absolutely nothing. And then there was another influx of Vietnamese refugees that came over during the early 80s, the boat people, also had nothing, and they have built this really strong, vibrant community, and every year they have the big giant parade, the Tet Parade going down, and then it showed me this beautiful Vietnamese war memorial, to me, it looks better than anything they have in Washington,
Wow.
I was just so amazed by the whole thing and by the culture and hearing all the amazing stories, because they all have incredible stories, that I thought I wanted to shoot something there. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I had to have. I wanted to be historically accurate, but at the same time have a comedy element. So the premise is a real estate salesman, Jack Mackey, who he goes down there and he goes to funerals of people he doesn't know, and pretends that he did know them in their life, and then he goes and he says, hey, he'll go and ask to speak, I'd like to say something about this guy if I may, this guy. One day he said, this guy saved my life over in Vietnam, he said he was a soldier over there, and makes up all these crazy stories. And then that gets him sucked into a whole world of intrigue and mystery,
Are you even a citizen?
No, Jack.
You hear that? She's not a citizen. She doesn't have a job, and I got her in this house. So come on down to my office. Let me give you a free donut, and we'll sit down and talk about getting you into a house like this, just like Gina Nguyen. And remember, my motto is nothing down in Little Saigon.
Come on, Balting, Jack, Little Saigon.
Because they're in Little Saigon, there's still this old there's still all this animosity that goes back to where it goes back to the war, because after the Saigon fell, everybody when the communists took over, all these guys had to go into re-education camps, and some of these guys, years later, they meet somebody from the re-education camps, and they say they were only be gone a couple of months, but they were gone years, and sometimes they would, meet like an old prison guard or something from a re-education camp here in Orange County, and that would lead to a violent ending. There was a lot of revenge motives that would take place, and also too, what was really huge with at that time for a long time was home invasion robberies, and because a lot of Vietnamese don't trust banks. I don't know if they do now, but they did then. And so a lot of the Vietnamese gangsters would go in knowing that they had valuables somewhere in their house. They had a safe somewhere, and they're going to get that stuff. The reason why they didn't trust banks, is this what I also found out, was that when Saigon fell, all the money they had in U.S. banks, they didn't guarantee any of the money. So from that point on, they didn't trust banks, they didn't trust police. And they knew they wouldn't go to the police if they had a home invasion robbery. It's an amazing amount of stories that came out of that, out of Little Saigon, and I think it would make a great series, just based on what really happened. But of course, I added the element of that, but then put in some comedy as well. Of course, got to have some comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, and your first feature since then is Villa Hollywood? No.
Well, Villa Hollywood which by the way you're extremely funny in,
Well, thank you.
and all your stuff came out great. Villa Hollywood is you saw we had the write up in Deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but they in Deadline it says it's a feature, but we've changed it since then. We're making it into a series
Oh, good.
because we feel that it'd be perfect for a series, and also, um, it seems like series are a little more marketable nowadays. You know that people are always
Will,
looking
will,
at
the- will this feature version that we shot, will that come out as a feature though?
no.
Oh,
No, so what that's going to be is we actually shots a lot of extra stuff. So right now we've edited down about 200 minutes, and we're going to shoot. We have one maybe two more pickup days, and add some more things. So it's going to come out to 6 22-minute episodes. So for the first season will be 6 episodes, and then we'll our goal is to sell it as a series, completely done.
that's great.
And so I so far everything looks really good. And everything came out good. We had our sound guy was tremendous. Our DP did a fantastic
That
job,
was a great crew.
and we were
So
really pleased.
Morty could come back again
Oh, Morty could. Oh,
if he
definitely. Yeah,
lives.
Morty's earmarked to come back. Definitely, for season 2. So, I'm kind of following the model of what there's a show from the I forget the guy's name now. The comic got a show on Netflix called Tires, right? So, he couldn't get anybody to buy it. Shane Gillis is his name. So for the first season, he put his own money in, and they shot 6 episodes, and then Netflix picked it up, and now they did season 2, and they gave him 12 episodes. But I think just because of the structure of everything, I mean, it kind of lends itself to a series because you can always have characters coming in and out. People move in, people move out, and I
But
I think it works well as a series.
for people watching the podcast, tell them what the idea of this is.
Well, it's about an apartment complex called the Villa Hollywood, and it's run by this ex teenage star who's now much older, and he's lost everything except one thing. He still has his apartment complex, but now he has to run it himself. And so he's always dreams of making some type of comeback, but in the meantime, he's living with a girlfriend who's kind of a washed up actress herself, who's now working at a strip club in Canoga Park, and so
That's
so
a good use.
and she doesn't want to do it anymore, So she's getting on Frank. He says, "Hey, you got to start collecting rent." So Frank is he's a soft touch, and so there's a lot of tenants that are behind in their rent, and he's not very good at collecting the rent from them. So she finally gives him an ultimatum: either you get it together and run this place like a business, or I'm out of here. So his big thing at this point is he's trying his best to save his relationship with his girlfriend, and he doesn't make it, and then she winds up moving out. So the rest of the series is him trying to get her back.
And Fred Melamed, our dear friend.
And Fred Melamed, who's, oh my God, yeah. So I've met so many great actors through you as well. So Fred Melamed, he's just got that great. He's just perfect for comedy anyway. He's got that great deadpan delivery, and so I was really pleased to get him involved with it, and as well as yourself, and then a lot of the actors there. Some I know already, but a lot of them were actors that I've met during the film festival. So every time each year we'd have some maybe some comedy shorts or features that had an outstanding performance by a certain individual. Then I would always I'd write that down.
For those who don't know, Mr. Sturla is the Studio City Film Festival, which he co-founded 13 years ago now.
That's right. That's right. 13 years. Yeah. So it's a labor of love. It's not. It's a pain in the ass, but I get a lot of good things out of it, and it's great to meet new people every year, and that's how I met you
Yeah.
as an example. And then and also, you know who did a really great performance is did you see another one of your friends, Brent Huff's? He was in a short. Oh God, I can't remember the name of it now. Did you see the short he was in called? I think it was called Darcy's Day.
No, I know
Outstanding
about it.
short.
I can't, you know,
He was great. In
you
fact, he was.
and Brent and myself, I can't keep all these comments that are shooting out. Was that in the festival this past
Oh,
year?
I was in year before last.
Okay.
But ask him about it, and he did this really great part that if it was a bigger part, he would have won an award for it. But it was short, but it's very powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good, good stuff.
Well, I told you this show flies by, and it's flown.
Oh,
We hit the magic 30 mark.
oh, nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Sturla. If you liked what you saw today, please click like when you see it. Subscribe. I haven't been pushing this, so I have to tell people.
Sure.
And we will see Steve Sturla again, many, many different places.
Boy, I
Thank
hope
you
so.
very much.
I hope I see myself too. Thanks.